Good evening. I'm Rohit Sharma and welcome to Desi From DC, coming to you every night from heart of Washington. This is where America's power corridors meet India's prime time to break down the political, economic, and global stories that shape both nation life from Washington, DC. From Capitol Hill to Raisana Hill, we connect the dots between what happens here in Washington and how it echoes back home in India. We begin tonight with the big stories of the day. Srinagar Police Station blast turns deadly. Massive US-Swiss trade deal unveiled. Trump shift homelessness policy amid backlash. US colleges see sharp foreign decline. And US thanks Pakistan, India still ignored. Breaking news from Srinagar, a catastrophic explosion has ripped through the Nowgam Police Station, killing at least 7 people and injuring 30 more. The death toll is expected to rise as many remain in critical condition and others are still missing under the debris. Body parts were found 300 feet from the blast site. The explosion happened during forensic testing of seized ammonium nitrate, part of shocking terror haul linked to Jaish-e-Mohammed module involving radicalized doctors and professionals. Casualties are feared as emergency services rushed to the scene. The station's house officer had exposed the sinister network after investigating JEM posters across the area, leading to arrest of doctors and the seizure of 3,000 kilograms of explosive from Faridabad. This is the same station that just cracked open a white-collar terror network with foreign handlers in Pakistan. We're following this news story and we'll keep bringing you more. Today, the White House announced a massive trade deal with Switzerland that could reshape global commerce. After slapping Switzerland with a crushing 39% tariffs, the highest from any Western nation, President Trump has flipped the script. The new framework slashes those tariffs to only 15% and unlocks $200 billion in Swiss investment by 2028. It also throws the Swiss market open to American farmers and manufacturers. It's a dramatic pivot from trade war to trade partnership, and both sides are calling it a win. But will it deliver? Let's break this down, what it really means for all of us. Today, the White House announced a major breakthrough in trade, a new framework deal with Switzerland that the administration says will reshape US export access, drive billions in investment, and tackle long-standing trade imbalances. It's a story of tariffs, diplomacy, and manufacturing. So let's unpack it. For years now, US-Swiss trade has carried some tension. Switzerland is a major exporter of pharmaceuticals, precision machinery, luxury goods, and the US ran a goods trade deficit with Switzerland of about $38.5 billion in 2024. In response, the US earlier imposed a very steep tariffs on Swiss goods, around 39%. In some cases, it was one of the highest rate applied by a Western country in this context. Switzerland pushed back, exports were falling, competitiveness slipping. The machinery makers, watchmakers, and precision instrument sectors were feeling the heat. Against that backdrop, viewing the lens of US President Donald Trump's fair and reciprocal trade agenda, the two countries set out to craft a new deal.
With Switzerland?
Yeah.
We're working on a deal to get their tariffs a little bit lower because...
15% is what we're doing.
No, I haven't said any number, but we're going to be working on something to help Switzerland along. We hit Switzerland very hard. We want Switzerland to remain successful, and, we're a part of Switzerland in the sense that they've been a very good ally. We're working on them and some others, and we're working on others to increase them a little bit too.
So what's in this new deal? First, tariffs on most Swiss goods will be capped at 15%, down from the 39%, bringing Switzerland in line with what EU faces in US markets. Second, Switzerland would commit to invest about $200 billion into the US by the end of 2028, and that is a promised $67 billion in 2026 alone. These investments will target sectors like pharmaceuticals, advanced manufacturing, aerospace, and energy infrastructure, creating thousands of American jobs in all 50 states, according to what was released by the White House. Third, US exporters, farmers, ranchers, fishermen, manufacturers get new access to Swiss market. The Swiss side agreed to remove or reduce tariffs on nuts, fish, and seafood, certain fruits, chemicals, and spirits, and established tariff rate quotas for US beef, bison, and poultry. Fourth, it addresses non tariff barriers, things like custom practices, import requirements for medical devices, intellectual property commitments, digital trade rules, and supply chain resilience. Finally, the deal sets a goal of concluding a full agreement in early 2026, turning this framework into a fully operational treaty. This matters on multiple fronts. For the US, it's a step forward in reducing the large trade deficit, creating high paying jobs, and bringing foreign manufacturing and investment back home. It signals to the world that the US is serious about trade reciprocity, even with long-time partners. For Switzerland, it relieves tariff pressure, restores competitive footing, and secures large-scale investment commitments. There are also broader strategic implications by strengthening supply chains, aligning digital trade norms, and working together on export controls and procurement access. The US and Switzerland are deepening their economic and strategic ties. In short, what began as a high tariff confrontation has morphed into a multi-billion-dollar investment and trade pact, one that seeks to reshape how two advanced economies trade with one another. And both sides are saying this is just the beginning. The Trump administration is making big changes to how it helps people who are homeless, instead of focusing mainly on long-term housing solutions, which have helped many people stay off the streets for years. The new plan will cut funding for these programs. Instead, the government will now put more money into temporary or transitional housing, which requires people to work or get help for addiction to stay housed. The idea is to encourage self-sufficiency and address problems like drug use and mental health issues that can lead to homelessness. The Housing and Urban Development said, although the total homelessness funding is increasing from $3.6 billion to about $3.9 billion, many existing programs might lose their funding, potentially putting about 170,000 people at the risk of losing their homes. Critics warn that this sudden change comes with little warning and may leave many without support for months as programs are restructured. They also say that those living in permanent homes, especially seniors and disabled people, could be forced out. Experts and advocacy groups believe that focusing only on temporary housing and stricter rules will not fix the main cause of homelessness, which is the rising rent prices. They say the new plan could make homelessness worse rather than better. President Trump has long pushed for stricter policies such as clearing encampments and making it easier to place homeless people in mental health facilities against their will, which critics say do not solve the problem of how high rent prices push people out of their homes. US colleges are seeing fewer foreign students applying this year. With a sharp drop in applications from India, the biggest source of international students, for the first time since 2020, Indian student applications fell by 14%, and the overall international applications dropped about 9% compared to last year. The decline is linked to new policies from Trump administration, which has tightened rules for foreign students, revoked visas, and pressured universities to rely on overseas enrollment. Applications from Africa and Asia fell, while China saw only a small percentage drop. Only Vietnam and Uzbekistan saw increases. The administration has also targeted universities with large international populations, launching investigations and demanding changes in how they handle foreign students. The Common App data shows the more students are now reporting standardized test scores as the government pushes colleges to bring back testing requirements. These were dropped during the pandemic. Starbucks' biggest sales day of the year turned into a labor nightmare. Over 1,000 unionized baristas walked out across America, shutting down stores and demanding a contract they've been waiting for 4 years. New York's mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani too is backing the strike. Here's a report on what's happening.
It was supposed to be one of Starbucks' biggest sales days of the year, Red Cup Day, when the coffee giant hands out its iconic holiday cups and stores are packed wall to wall. But this year, workers had other plans. Over 1,000 unionized baristas walked out of 65 stores across the United States, turning Red Cup Day into what they are calling the Red Cup Rebellion. From New York to Seattle, Philadelphia to San Diego, picket lines replaced coffee lines. Some stores shut down completely. Others operated with skeleton crews. The message? Crystal clear. No contract, no coffee. Here's what's driving the anger. It's been 4 years since workers first unionized in Buffalo, New York. 4 years. And Starbucks still hasn't finalized a single contract. The last offer from the company? April, 6 months ago. Workers rejected it because it failed to address basic demands: better pay, improved staffing, healthcare benefits. Since then, radio silence from management. Now workers are fighting back, and they are not alone. Enter Zohran Mamdani, New York City's youngest mayor-elect in nearly a century. Back in October, Mamdani stood outside a Manhattan Starbucks with striking baristas and made them a promise. He said, quote, "If you force these workers to go on strike, then I will be there with them on that strike as well."
Look, Starbucks had agreed, they had made a commitment, a public commitment that they would be offering a fair contract to workers. And instead what they've offered are 50-cent raises by and large across the board. This is all while they're paying their CEO more than $110 million. A CEO who takes a company private jet to get to and from work much of the time. All while these same workers are being told there's not enough money for them to actually be paid what they're worth.
Fast forward to Friday, Mamdani kept his word. He announced on X, "While workers are on strike, I won't be buying any Starbucks and I'm asking you to join us. Together we can send a powerful message. No contract, no coffee." He didn't hold back in October either, blasting CEO Brian Nichols' $96 million compensation package. That's 6,666 times what the average Starbucks worker makes. The widest CEO to worker pay gap of any Fortune 500 company. Meanwhile, Congress is watching. Over 100 lawmakers led by Bernie Sanders sent a letter to Nichols this week calling the delays troubling and accusing Starbucks of union-busting tactics. The union's demands? They say it would cost less than 1 day's worth of Starbucks sales, less than 4 months of the CEO's pay. Starbucks insists most stores stayed open and sales remain strong. But workers aren't backing down. This strike has no end date, and 550 unionized stores are ready to escalate if talks don't resume. The Red Cup Rebellion is just beginning. With Dibangna Datta, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
A new warning sign in America's housing market. Nearly 900,000 homeowners are now underwater on their mortgages, meaning they owe more than their home is worth. It's still a small slice of the market, but the highest level in 3 years, and it's raising real concerns about what could come next. Let's take a look at what's driving this shift and which communities are feeling the pressure first. Existing home sales are already on track to hit a 30-year low, and prices in many parts of the country have finally begun to cool. According to Intercontinental Exchange, or ICE, 1.6% of all US mortgage holders are underwater. And while most homeowners still have equity to spare, the troubling trend is concentrated among recent buyers who purchased with very low down payments, especially the ones with FHA and VA loans that allow just 3.5% of down payment. Nearly 90% of underwater loans come from mortgages originated in the last 3.5 years. The reasons vary by region, but the main driver is simple. In many markets, supply is now outpacing demand and home prices are falling up to 30% in the US metro areas. The steepest decline? Austin, Texas, where the prices are down 22% from their peak in 2022. Data says that's nearly a $130,000 drop. About 7% of Austin mortgages are now underwater, especially in fast-growing suburban corridors where younger families bought their starter homes. And this was during the pandemic surge. Florida isn't far behind. In Cape Coral, home values have fallen 15% since 2022, leaving 11% of homeowners underwater. These declines are concentrated further inland, while coastal areas, despite the flood risk, have held prices much better. Economists stress that this is not another 2008 scenario. National home equity is still historically strong, but they warn underwater homeowners are more vulnerable if they lose a job or face a sudden financial shock. When a homeowner is underwater, selling becomes almost impossible, and that's showing up in the data too. Realtor.com says delisting has jumped 52% year-over-year this year in September, signaling that many sellers simply pulled their homes off market after realizing they would lose money. And foreclosure activity is also rising. Florida tops the nation with 1 in every 2,182 homes facing a foreclosure action, a 24% increase from last year. Texas, meanwhile, ranks 10th on the list. So while this isn't a housing crash, it's a flashing yellow light for the market, especially for recent buyers with small down payments in cooling cities. Most homeowners will be just fine as long as they stay put, but the pressure is building for those who cannot afford to wait. A major push is underway at United Nations. The United States, joined by several Arab and Muslim majority nations, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, is urging the United Nations Security Council to quickly approve a resolution backing President Trump's peace plan for Gaza. In a joint statement released Friday, 9 countries, the US, Qatar, Egypt, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Pakistan, Jordan, and Turkey, called for the draft resolution's swift adoption. Russia, meanwhile, has put forward its own competing proposal. Meanwhile, on the ground in Gaza, Israel returned the bodies of 15 Palestinians on Friday as a part of the fragile US-brokered ceasefire deal. This came after militants handed over the body of Manny Goddard, an Israeli hostage taken during the October 7th attack. Goddard was abducted from Kibbutz Bereh. His wife Eilat was also killed in the same attack. So far, 25 hostage bodies have been returned to Israel since the ceasefire began in October. 20 living hostages were also released. In exchange, Israel has returned the remains of 330 Palestinians, though only 95 have been formally identified due to a severe shortage of DNA testing kits in Gaza. The ongoing prisoner-remain exchange is central to ceasefire's first phase. Health officials say identifying bodies remain extremely difficult, and 27 unidentified Palestinians were buried on Friday. As this delicate peace process moves forward, it's worth noting the US publicly thanked Pakistan for its support in pushing this UN resolution, but notably, India has not been mentioned or acknowledged in any of the joint statements or diplomatic outreach. Canadian pipeline giant Enbridge has greenlit a massive $1.4 billion expansion project to pump more oil into the United States. The company says despite Canada's effort to diversify its export market, the US remains the best and the most logical destination for Canadian crude. The expansion will boost capacity on Enbridge's mainline and Flanagan South pipelines by 250,000 barrels per day, moving heavy Canadian oil to refineries in the US Midwest and Gulf Coast. The upgraded pipeline are expected to come online in 2027. Enbridge is also planning a second phase expansion early next year, which could add another 250,000 barrels per day of capacity. Combined, these projects aim to handle Canada's growing oil production, which hit a record 5.1 billion barrels per day last year. Canada currently sends 90% of its oil exports to the US, and while Canadian government has been exploring alternatives, particularly a new pipeline to British Columbia's west coast to reach Asian markets, Enbridge executives say the US expansion makes more sense right now. That's where the world's biggest refining complex is, and they want more of our oil, said Enbridge Executive VP Colin Grunding. The opportunity is strong to the south, and there are geopolitical reasons to strengthen those ties. Alberta is working on the feasibility of new crude pipeline to Canada's northwest coast to boost exports to Asia. The existing Trans Mountain pipeline, owned by the Canadian government, tripled its capacity last year and is exploring further incremental expansion that could add up to 300,000 barrels per day by 2029. But Enbridge's message is clear. When it comes to expansion priorities, it's a south first, then west. The company believes its US bond projects combined with Trans Mountain's growth will provide enough capacity to help Canada's oil supply increase through the end of the decade. And if Canadian oil production grows even faster, Enbridge says it has the ability to take on additional mainline expansions, all heading south across the border. While Americans debate if the renewed interest in the Epstein file is another political drama or an overdue investigation to bring powerful people to justice, some have taken a strong position and are putting up displays like this. And that wraps up tonight's edition of Desi from DC. This is Rohit Sharma for India Today Global, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button before you leave. Stay tuned, stay informed, and as always, stay curious. Good night.